Again, for those of you who haven't been here before, this is part of the guest lecture series for the History of Mathematics course that I teach in the summer here. If you don't know, I do see some new faces that I haven't seen at the talks before. It's a 3-credit course this summer. It's the History of Mathematics of the Renaissance, and it's going to culminate with a 2-week trip to Northern Italy as part of the course. Tonight we have our guest speaker, Dr. Thomas Mounkhall. Dr. Mounkhall is a professor at SUNY New Paltz. Prior to that, he had 33 years of teaching experience in high schools in New York State, teaching world history. After his retirement, he completed a degree in modern world history at St. John's University in New York City. He's taught undergraduate and graduate classes in world history at SUNY New Paltz for, is it 7 years or?
At least a decade.
10 years or more. And he's been directing summer institutes, at least 15 or so, for high school teachers in world history in Georgia, Wisconsin, New York City, and SUNY New Paltz. So he's teaching teachers as well, which is an important business. And I just found out recently Dr. Mounkhall and his wife have traveled to Cambodia to teach teachers over there as well, and that's been going on for a few years. Mm-hmm. Okay. So tonight's talk is the Renaissance and World History Perspective. So let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Thomas Mounkhall.
Thank you very much, Doug, and welcome. Good evening, good afternoon, good evening. Dr. Mounkhall is fine, but my name is Tom. And please interrupt any time with questions or comments. This will be informal. And thanks for inviting me. I really enjoy talking about this topic. Now, for you folks over here, of course, you may sit where you want, but I'm going to leave the lights out. And I'm going to use this timeline and this map. So if you think you can see well, that's fine. If not, you may want to come closer. Okay? All right. So let's begin, and here's my email, by the way, if anyone wants to continue this conversation for as long as you want, it would be my pleasure. The Renaissance is one of the core, it's one of the central events, topics in European history, and indirectly in U.S. history, because of the tremendous influence of Europe and the United States and Canada, and Mexico for that matter. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. Because many of the ideas in the European Renaissance have had some direct and or indirect influence on what we call our modern existence, the modern world. I'd like to take you through just some of these, the canon that I'm sure everybody here is familiar with, just to make the point about how important this is in being very precise here. European history and directly U.S. history. I didn't mention world history. I can get to that in a second. Hopefully I won't get in trouble with some of the comments that I'll make. But you have the first secular political theory in world history during the Italian Renaissance of Machiavelli. Not necessarily in The Prince, but in his other writings. And this is early 16th. This is the first secular, non-metaphysical political theory. Italian Renaissance. You have Da Vinci drawing in the middle of the 15th century, Vitruvian Man. Vitruvius was one of the foremost ancient Roman architects. Circa, I'm saying circa, around 30 BCE. I'm using CE and BCE. Secular, modern world, as opposed to, as contrasted with the BC and AD, which have religious connotations.
You said to interject.
Anytime, please.
When you said for a secular government, quick popped into my head, I think of the Greeks as democracy. I mean, they were still very religious, so I guess that religious temples exempts them?
It's the Renaissance is renewal, it's rebirth of much of the classical Greek and Roman, in this case, political theory. But if a lot of that classical corpus is in the context of Olympus. This, if you read Machiavelli, it's just what's the best way to run a state. I mean, that's one of the central differences. What do we have here? We have man, and I'm saying man because this is 15th century now, okay? In the early 21st century, this is not politically correct, but this is man at the center of things. Incredibly important idea, not just in Europe and the United States and North America, but in the world, that the individual is important in society. Where do you want to go with that? A Bill of Rights? That's where I'd go with it immediately. But also, that's a man, that's a human being. It's not a deity in the center of things. And one of the essential ideas of the Italian Renaissance was that people could solve their own problems. They had enough brain power to solve their own problems. Not saying that they became a secular, totally secular society and divorced themselves from metaphysics, but this is a huge step towards solving problems on the material, physical level.